All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today at the RG Podcast. It is a beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning here in South Korea. So sun is shining, and I got a long day at the community garden here. But I thought I'd come out and talk about drugs real quick. And yeah, so you guys ready to talk about drugs?
Let's do it.
So first
Which
of all,
I would say DMT.
we got a very special guest, Miss Sophia. Can you tell me where you're calling out of?
Hi, I'm calling from Texas, good old Texas, and
And
it is
what part of
8
Texas?
p.m. here.
8 p.m.
Here, Dallas.
Dallas. Hey, you know Dallas is salad backwards. You ever thought about that?
No, I never thought about that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have to move very, very quickly because I only have about an hour. So I want to ask you really quickly before we get into this topic to kind of frame, uh, just to frame this a little bit. But can you tell me really briefly what you said? You described yourself as a mystic. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, if I had to, I would say I'm a mystic. I really don't have any labels. I used to be a Christian, but I'm not anymore. But the main
Condolences.
premise of what I believe in is as above, so below, and that means basically that the physical reality is like a dimension. It's not the only dimension, and it's basically um, the best way I could describe it to people that I usually use that as an example is before there's an action, there's a thought. So the thought exists in your mind, but it's not made manifest in reality yet. And so the same way that people say there's like a spiritual realm, that's what we believe too. It's like the subatomic realm or the metaphysical
Hmm.
realm. And whatever is in this material realm already exists there before it happens here. You see what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah. Actually, as a Christian, we believe that. Well, I don't know. We believe, but I think it's definitely implied that there's like for example, it's implied that there's an exact copy of the temple that was created that God told whoever to create the temple. I think maybe David. I, don't know, I should know my Bible
Hmm.
better. He told him to
David.
create in some very, 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 very like anal retentive like ways to build with certain dimensions. I mean, he went way out of his way to explain this, and so it's said later on. I believe it's in Hebrews that there is like an exact copy replicate of that in heaven. So it was very important that it be created in some like specific dimensions. And so it's thought maybe there is like another probably not even making sense, another external like reality that is exactly like this one up in heaven. So I don't
Yeah,
think
see, that's the
that's
whole point
entirely.
exactly. Like, sorry, I guess
No,
it
please,
was
please.
lagging.
No, you're the guest. I don't have much to say,
So
so
since
don't worry about me.
we're be talking about drugs, on one of my DMT experiences, I had like this realization, and it was like, oh my God, it's like everything around us is just like a feeble attempt of reality, and it's all rigid compared to how it actually is, and it's kind of shitty actually. So that's kind
Well,
of the realization that I had. It
have
is,
you heard
it
about?
is a very terrible copy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Plato had a lot to say about this, and I think his analogy of the the analogy of the cave, I think is, I mean, it's not a good analogy exactly, but it helps you to understand that there could be like a manifestation that we could see, for example, that might be just a small reflection of what truly out there. And physicists have also said this as well. This is not something that is entirely like when you start talking about this kind of stuff, people get like, oh, you're being really like wooey or like you're out there. You know what I mean? But I think there's some
Yeah,
physics that might make this.
Yeah,
Scott, what do you?
holographic. Yeah,
Yeah.
holographic.
Okay, holographic or simulation, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's different ways to look at it. Like with the holographic principle, it's basically not saying it's necessarily like a computer or some sort of construct like that, but it's kind of like the base reality itself, the metaphysical foundation of everything is sort of projected into a form
Right.
that our
Right.
consciousness sort of is encoded to relate to. So,
Right.
kind of how the
like
holographic
we're
principle.
tricked. Yeah, it's almost like like we've tricked our own mind into believing that this is real, and it's almost
Mm,
like comparable to fantasy or a dream. And
yep.
there's
Right. So
another guy. Go ahead.
no, please,
I
please.
would say
I'm
Gorgeous was that big thing. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. His
With
name's
who?
Gorgeous or Gordius. I don't know how you say it. Gorgeous.
Mm. Oh, I'm not
I,
sure.
you know what? I
He
don't know. I
talked.
never heard of him, but I do want to get into the topic very specifically, and I do want to talk right now. I have someone staying with me, and he's from Germany, and just in conversation, what?
Sophia's from Germany.
You're from
Yes.
Germany, really?
Ja, ich
Okay.
bin von Deutschland. Was?
Anyway, he okay. So he's staying with me. I met him through this site called Couchsurfing. I host people from like all over the world, and I've actually been helping some people who've been escaping Russia right now, escaping the war. So, but anyway, I meet a lot of people here, and just in conversation, I was like, we had mentioned Breaking Bad, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've never seen it." So that being said, for the last week, we've been binging Breaking Bad, and I got to tell you that my parents grew up because I'm a minister's kid, and my parents grew up like ministering to people with drug problems, and um, that kind of stuff that is displayed on there is like I see it. I'm like, oh my god, I've seen this kind of stuff growing up all my life. Like if I told you how many friends and relatives that have either physically lost their lives, either directly or indirectly, it's in the dozens. And so I do want to preface this that we can talk about this topic, and I have used drugs, and I want to talk about my topics, but I do want to say that there's a bit of a trigger warning here, and that people this is something that affects a lot of people's lives, because it is definitely something that could be really badly abused if not done carefully. Would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know I
I
would. Yeah.
drugs are bad for the most part, except psychedelics.
Yeah. Drugs are bad and wrong. They're badong. And I see them
Hugs,
every
not
day.
drugs.
Yeah, I have personal experience with drugs. My brother died of an overdose, a heroin overdose. When I was
Mm,
younger,
Condolences.
problem. And drugs have kind of ruined my family. But I've been sober for over 20 years, so
Wow.
yeah, drugs are bad,
Congratulations.
and that's just to it. I mean, simple.
yep.
So I do want to say this, and then we'll get into these questions because one, I lost a cousin at 18 due to weed and drinking, and then two, my mom. My mom's a minister's wife. My parents are ministers, and she got into an accident. Actually, and I saw this accident right in front of me. She fell, and as a result of that, she wound up through some time developing a pill addiction, and it really wind up doing immense, immeasurable damage to my family, ripping my family apart, and ultimately led to her life ending. So there's also issues with legal drugs as well. I think we all know that. And then it's like I didn't know this at the time, but because I didn't try weed much later on as a kid at this point, but it helped me with some psychological issues that I was dealing with at the time, and it also has like medicinal. I genuinely believe my mom's life could have been saved had she discovered marijuana and used it like in a healthy manner. not to party and stuff. I'm really like not into just using stuff to party or just have fun, but it can be it has some medicinal and some psychological um, help that it could potentially help someone. So I think that's something we want to keep in mind. But okay, let's just get into right real quickly. What has been your personal experience with drugs?
Um, so
Nicotine? Nicotine?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, well, yeah, for
Sophia?
Sophia. Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I'm just kidding.
Fred, I don't know if he asked me or you would. He asked you, you could go first.
Okay.
I was
What?
joking around because you're smoking. I'm like, well, nicotine. We got nicotine right here.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Sorry, stupid joke.
I really
so, so like
Yep.
I've never really smoked cigarettes. That's one drug I've stayed away from just because it was never really appealing to me for some reason. But I do smoke weed a lot and probably more than I want to, just because it helps me relax and go to sleep. And it's a way to like like a cheating way to slow my brain down and my thoughts, so at night I can sleep instead of just biting the bullet and meditating and doing more healthy things. And I've done that before,
Mhm.
but then what happens, peer pressure is a bitch. So I have friends, guys I hang out with, and they're all sitting around smoking weed. So it's like, fuck, what am I gonna do? Just be a lame, or miss out. So I'll smoke with them. And then the next thing you know, I want to get more to help me sleep. And it's like really stupid. But one thing I don't do is I do believe in the principle of unattachment, right? So I
Right.
never let myself become attached to anything, like
Mhm.
even weed. I haven't smoked weed in a few days now. Um, so I can turn it off when I want to.
Mhm.
It's just that I don't want to sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be honest with you, I just want to have a
Yeah. Of
vice
course.
that I can, and in a way, it's kind of like I don't, I saw me and Sophia saw a video of Terrence Howard. Remember that? And Terrence Howard was saying he doesn't really
yeah,
trust people that don't have a vice. If they can't really come out and admit they have something they do that's wrong, he's like, I don't really trust them. And I'm kind of the same way. If you're like a little angel out here, I don't know, man. I don't know
you
if
got
you're really keeping it real. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Christian, and that I would be the first. And Scott knows that I'm just the first to admit I'm hypocritical, and I don't. I'm not only hypocritical, but
you said
I
that you're able to.
oh I that's not even questionable. It's hypocritical, but I don't live close to. What was that?
That's terrible, dude.
Oh yeah, of course it is. Absolutely. But I'm honest about that fact. And oh, by the way,
You need to be
Sophia,
safe.
we're on a bit of a time delay here, but let's try not to interrupt each other while we're talking. Okay, please. But anyway, that being said, no problem. No issue. I said time delay, so totally. But Scott said he didn't see the appeal for that, and I could tell you this, Scott. When I was getting a divorce about around 15 years ago, um, I would get off work, and then you know what a PC bong is? A PC room? They have them
Mm-mm.
all here in South
Oh,
Korea. Guys, bunch of 30, 40-year-old virgins just sit around and game all day long. I mean, all
Wow.
day. There's thousands. There's tens of thousands of them here in South Korea. They're everywhere. Anyway, but I would get off work and I'd go do some gaming, and I would be start smoking to deal with the stress of it. And I remember one time I smoked an entire pack, and I'm like, I gotta stop this right now, man. And I've never like consistently. I might socially smoke if I'm having a few drinks, but yeah, it can definitely help deal with stress. So I totally
Hmm.
understand why people do it, man, because it helped me out through a difficult time in my life. I'll tell you that for sure. But
Yeah.
anyway, Sophia, can you tell me about your personal experience?
well,
As
I've
far as,
had a personal experience with a lot of drugs. Like I said earlier, I started off with alcohol and weed, and I was trying to be like my bigger brother. And I was addicted to heroin for about 3 years as a teenager, which is pretty
wow.
common in Germany. Um, and I got sober. I came to the United States, and I've been drug free. I do like psychedelics though. and that's about it. I mean, I have a nicotine addiction, and for me, it's kind of like a relief, I guess. I feel relief when I smoke cigarettes, and that's like the worst habit to break. Like I could quit everything because I've kind of tried pretty much all drugs when I was
Hmm.
younger, but cigarettes is just the worst. Like both my parents smoked. My mom, she'd have me light her cigarettes when I was a kid,
Wow.
and my dad was a chain smoker, and smoking has always been a part of my life, unfortunately.
I do want to say that the people who I know, who I met, who were like used really hard drugs, and not just like weed. Some people would consider that like a hard drug, but like I'm talking about like meth or heroin. They all told me that they've got started on that stuff at like 12 or 13 years old, which blows my mind because I think back whenever I was 12 and 13 years old, I was playing basketball and I was really into chess, and people tend to be really hard and down on people with drug habits. And I genuinely get that. But you also have to understand people who have these habits, one, they get started at a very early age. Two, they're just never really taught healthy ways of dealing with things, you know? So either if it's from kind of abuse that they've experienced or relationships, um, they've never been taught healthy mechanisms of coping with stuff. And for me, I can tell you this 100%, my own personal experience with alcoholism. And I think I've told Scott this one. Like on my wedding night, I got so drunk, I threw up so much in the tub at a hotel that I couldn't climb out of the hotel. I couldn't climb out of the tub in the hotel, and I had to lay in my own vomit for like an hour just to be able to sober up enough to crawl out of there. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But all kinds of things
Mm.
like that, accidents, the fights, losing stuff. I mean, everything you can name that could happen because of alcoholism. I experienced. So, but it wasn't until much later on that I learned healthy mechanism with dealing with stress and other things that other ways of dealing with problems in my life and getting healthy and sober. But just unfortunately, people don't learn these at an early age. So I have a lot of empathy and
Well,
compassion with people. Yeah, good.
can you say something about that?
Hmm.
Please, please go.
I don't think it's so much about that kids aren't taught to learn how to deal with these things. I think sometimes we just simply don't know how to deal with things because things can happen suddenly and unexpected, and you wouldn't think to prepare, a little child for something like her mom being murdered, and that's what happened to me. So,
What?
how do you deal
Hmm.
with that when it happens? You don't just learn how to deal with that. It's like you
That's
just
right.
said. You know what I mean? So I think it's just a little more than that. And so, doing drugs was a way for me to self medicate so I wouldn't feel the pain. And I honestly didn't want to live. And I also attempted suicide. So, it's just how do we teach kids to deal with that kind of loss? I mean, at the end of the day, some of us are gonna make it, and some of us ain't gonna make it.
Hmm.
Well, okay. So I lost my mom, but I was 25 years old. She actually died on my birthday, so we just celebrated 16 years of this. And I didn't start to deal with that, Sophia, till years later, and that caused a lot of issues in my life. But it's just amazing that I went long and so long with just completely cutting it out of my life. I had to like not deal with it at all because it literally caused me a mental breakdown. And I actually went to Thailand and used every last drug I could get my hands on in Thailand. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but uh, what I experienced on some of these drugs. But um, yeah, I had really unhealthy ways of dealing with stuff. and I got professional help later on. Um, but I think that you know, I think it comes down to that. Like you just don't know how to deal with it. You mentioned how do you prepare fibro? I don't really know. I mean, that's above my pay grade, but I do know that like when you don't know how to deal with it, you resort to some unhealthy ways to deal with it. For example, like there was a lot of other stuff. It wasn't just drugs. It was also like gambling addiction, sex
Right.
addiction. I had all kinds of shit going on. So just thank God I'm no longer there. But I do want to get to this next question. What drugs do you think should be legal?
Hmm.
But
Um.
I think it should be legal and psilocybin, like mushrooms and stuff.
Definitely.
I think we
So
should
natural stuff.
incorporate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think like natural substances um that people have traditionally used for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, all over the world that had, it was considered medicine in certain cultures. I think that's okay. I don't see what the problem is with that. But it's like anything else. Anything can be abused,
Mhm.
but that just because people abuse something doesn't make the substance necessarily evil in itself. It's just a thing. It's a substance. It doesn't do anything. It's all in how you use it and how you what
Right.
context you use it in and stuff like that. And like for me, I don't see weed as a big deal. Like I don't really drink a lot. It gives me heartburn and other problems, so I resort to weed for that little escapism for a few minutes or whatever. I don't see that as a really big problem, but I've also done like cocaine and other drugs like that. Those things can actually hurt you. Like they raise your heart rate and
Right.
they can cause all kinds of things, and they become very addictive. And when
Hmm.
it's very addictive, it makes your life and everything people around you suffer. And so, whether that should be illegal, I mean, I guess it's bad for you. If it's bad for you, I guess the government's there to say, hey, don't do this or do that. On the other hand, they do it anyways. People do bad stuff anyways and misuse drugs, alcohol, and stuff that's already legal. So,
Right.
I'm not sure if making it illegal exasperates the problem. I think there's all kinds of studies, depends on which study you want to go along with, but there's studies like in Amsterdam and Germany where stuff is like totally legal out there. And there's actually less of a drug problem than say here in the States where all that shit's
Hmm.
scheduled to be
Right.
illegal. And so I don't know. It's a
Uh,
weird question.
I think that just to add to that, I think it's a downright shame and it's actually criminal to prevent people from experimenting with psychedelics because it's
Yes.
it's like medicine for the mind. It works. Our ancestors have been using it for thousands of years, and I experiment with it, and I know for a fact that it's good for you. And
Hmm.
why would you prevent people from being able to use something like that? The same way that we fast and cleanse our bodies and take breaks from certain things and
Hmm.
reorganize. Psychedelics do that for your mind, and everybody needs that every so often with the stress of society and traumas that we experience. And it's like there's a lot of scientific proof and evidence that psychedelics literally can help restore your mind. It literally like rearranges your neurons and stuff. And
Right.
why would they prevent if they wanted people to be healthier and make better choices and not suffer from trauma so much? And that's where big
Well, because they
pharma
don't
comes
want a
in.
lot. Some people have vested interest of not wanting, not having people healthy. So I think that's a
Mm,
pretty
Right.
kind of.
That's
But
pharma comes in
so
at.
I do want to say something that as a former alcoholic, I can tell you without any doubt, alcohol, at least for me, I'll specifically speak for me. Alcohol is 100 times worse than smoking weed ever. Because when I got drunk, I would get violent. I would get violent. I would black out, and I would lose stuff all over the place. When I got high, which is not so frequent, but I mean, I have been high plenty of times. I would basically just be there and getting all these incredible thoughts in my mind. But if you try to talk to me, like I would never be able to fight someone because my motor skills went down like 1,000 times. I'm like, I look kind of like a vegetable because like if you try to talk to me, I'm like, yeah, I went to the store and I bought a candy. Like literally, it's
That's
that
me.
level, but my thinking probably goes up like 300 or 400%. It like quadruples. That's not an exaggeration. So I have seen I have been on both, and alcohol definitely so much worse. And I will say something, I live in South Korea, and South Korea, like per capita, is like the second or third largest consumer of alcohol in the planet. And you could walk down the street and like every other corner there's a either place you can buy alcohol or a restaurant where you could also buy alcohol. Because literally like 100% of the restaurants here you can walk into, I shouldn't say 100%, but like obviously the McDonald's you can't, but like 90% of the restaurants you can actually buy alcohol because it's part of the culture. But then they're like super anal about things like weed. Like you cannot get weed here in South Korea. So yeah, there definitely seems to be some double standards and some
That's a
illogical.
backwards.
What?
That's ass backwards. That's just like over here in the hood. In the hood you have a liquor store on every corner, and alcohol is fine, even though it makes people do the worst stuff, like get
Yeah,
into wrecks and people. And
right,
I mean, come on, like, you have to really wonder what kind of government thinks that alcohol is okay, but you're gonna
right.
ban uh, psychedelics
Sticky
and make
icky.
DMT or whatever schedule
Right.
felony, whatever. I don't,
So
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
so I want to get into the next question. The next question is, can drugs serve uh any I need to write these questions better. Can drugs serve any person in a person's life? Where's my English skills going? Any purpose in a person's life? Yeah.
I tell you what.
Actually, Scott wrote that question, so I'm going to blame Scott.
All right.
Okay, God, Scott, go ahead.
I will tell you this. Recently, I went to Dallas and had a great time with Sophia and Alex and her family, and and on the side we endeavored into DMT and some things, and it was the greatest. It helped me calm down. It helped me deal with things a lot better when I got back because I was more at peace.
Did we go in bars and tear shit up, or what did we do? We went to the
We just
zoo.
chill.
We
Yeah, went to the
went
zoo, to the parks, and it was a great afternoon.
we
Wait,
were
you went
like
to
a
the
bunch of
park?
old people.
You went to a zoo while on DMT?
Yeah. I mean, DMT
Okay.
only lasts a few minutes. It's not like you're high. We did the DMT, and then we got like, it was like a little safari, in my little truck, and we went to a ranch that had these exotic animals that has like zebras and camels, and we just went to check out the animals, and we were driving like in the countryside, and yeah, it was, we were doing like nature things. It made us feel connected. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So okay. So the high only lasts a couple of minutes, but what does it do? Like, can you explain what it does into your mind?
Yeah, but it's different every time. It's like the way that DMT works. It just kind of gives you what you need at that moment. Like you don't
Hmm.
expect it to do certain things. You just get certain kind of realizations, and you see like visuals, like geometric shapes and things like that. And then there's what I call the afterglow. You don't feel high, but you can tell that your energy is completely different. Your mind feels more clear, and you can have realizations like a couple days later, a couple of weeks later, and it just it doesn't feel like a high. You know, when you obviously when you first do it, it does feel like a high, but it feels more like an outer body experience or like an ego
Mhm.
death. You know what I mean? And then when you settle back in your body, you get this immense feeling of peace and love, and then you just start to see things like with clear eyes. It's just different. Like,
Yeah.
and you just it with depression. It helps you see things from a whole different perspective. I mean, I've heard of people doing DMT and never touching alcohol again, and they've been alcoholics
Wow.
their entire life.
Wow.
Stuff like that. It's real,
Wow.
it's real because realizations that you have on it put things in such a clear perspective for you that it just makes you think differently and then
Yeah.
you make different choices. You know what I'm saying?
Well, look. Okay. So
It's hard.
I want to. No, I want to explain something that happened with me. Um, because I told you when my mom passed away, it caused me to have a nervous breakdown. Okay. So as a result of that, I went to the Netherlands because I had a friend there, and I'm like, I'm gonna go there. I need to reboot my brain because I'm in a total meltdown right now. I couldn't function anymore in society. So I went there, and I was actually just walking, and I saw like a coffee shop, and I'm like, okay, it's a coffee shop. Went in there, and they're like, I saw a thing that said space cake, and so you buy it for like $2, and I realized what it was. I seen it in movies, and so I ate it, and later on, it wound up kicking in, right? And as I'm walking there, I'm walking around, and my mind just goes into something totally different, man. It's something just changes, and all of these splinter thoughts from my childhood, all these different memories that I had, just abruptly came into like a complete picture of my childhood, and I made so many connections. And then after I woke up, I'm like, how did I not realize that before? Like, this must have been subconsciously. I
Right?
subconsciously knew all this stuff. And so the next day, I was like, man, that was a really bad trip. I'm like, I don't know if any of that was true. So I called up my mom's best friend, and I talked to her, and I told her about what happened. And I said, hey, listen, I just want to run this by you and tell me if this is accurate, this stuff that I experienced. And she wound up confirming all of this stuff to me. So I know it wasn't just some crazy trip in my mind. It
Right.
actually
It
made
wasn't.
sense. Yeah, so weed didn't help me to solve my problems, but it made me aware that there was this issue in my life that was deep seated and that I hadn't addressed. And then later on, I was able to get professional help. But it had just, I don't know how I never addressed that in my life. It's just mind blowing to me that
Mm.
I went 30 years without.
Something to the surface that was deep in your subconscious, and
Right.
because of that, you were able to see it and deal with it and address it. You know what I'm saying? And that's like why I advocate for those type of drugs, even though they're really medicine. But if you guys don't mind, because I know we don't have a lot of time, and I do want to share this one story, and I'll try to make it really
Mm-hmm.
quick because I think
No,
it's
please,
really
please,
important.
please.
Um, if that's okay. So it's about TNT. The way that I came across it is already crazy, right? To make a long story short, there was a guy at a park, and I ended up smoking it with 2 people or 3 people, and I was afraid of it because I had always heard bad things about it. Because you know how they try to say it's dangerous and all that. But anyway, I did it, and the first thing that I thought was, "Oh my God, y'all just killed me." It felt like I died, and I got extremely scared. But then it was like my body was propelled out, like I was propelled out of my body, like I just was gone. There was no Sophia, nothing. And then after the fear, it subsided really quickly. That was like maybe 30 seconds or less. And then I settled back in my body, and all of a sudden I was just like, basically, I'm not gonna go into all the stuff that I was feeling. That's too long. So me and my dad had a bad relationship. He abused me, blah blah blah. Fast forward, I came into contact with DMT that day, and that day is when my dad started his dying process, which I didn't know because
Sorry,
me and
what?
him didn't talk.
Dying.
His
Oh, dying
dying
Okay,
process.
okay.
He was dying. but I didn't know. So from that day on, for the next couple of days, for about 2 weeks, I continued to experiment with DMT. And then I want to say about 5 days later, I had a DMT experience where I experienced my dad as if he was talking to me. And he told me I had it all wrong. You need to move on with your life and stop blaming yourself. I was the one who had it all wrong. And I love you. And
Mm.
so I felt help and love, and he wanted me to be able to move on with closure. And he was letting me know that. So I was like, I was telling my friend who was doing it with me what had happened and what I experienced. And I was telling him, I think that I finally made peace with my dad. I think he
Wow.
somehow contacted me and finally at peace with him. Well, then I got an email from my sister the next day informing me that my dad died and that when he
Wow.
was on his deathbed before he died, said my name, and his dying process started prior to that on the same day that I came in contact with DMT. And
Mm.
that right there is, you can't make that up. And I was like, what the heck? So, I do believe in God or a higher power, and I just feel like the way that happened, there has to be a higher power that
Yeah.
almost like arranged this for me so that I
Right.
can have that closure. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I would not have experienced something deep.
So
So
I
I mean,
want to
it's
be
really
very.
cool, but that's
Oh,
pretty cool, right?
that's crazy story. Wow. I want to say that that's amazing story, and I want to say that Sophia, you seem to have an extremely rough life, but you seem very well put together. So I think that might
Mhm.
be you have something to um, something to at least attribute part of it. I hate the idea of attributing everything to a drug or something because I think it also takes personal work that we need to do. That's why I don't say marijuana saved my life. It made me aware of some issues in my life that I
Mhm.
did extremely hard work to get reunited with my wife. That was a lot of fucking work that took, but at
And I'm
least
glad that
became
I'm glad,
yeah.
I'm glad you're saying
But
that because I don't want people to think, oh, if I do this, then I'm gonna be sick.
right,
No,
right,
you still have to do it. You can't
right.
expect some drugs to.
And I do want to say this because I've had experiences overseas, and I do have to say this is just like I have to say this. This is absolutely crucial because I say don't mess around with stuff at all. Like you're best to deal things sober, and but I mean the reality is yes. Do I have a few drinks? Sure. Do I think smoking marijuana is completely wrong? Well, not if you do it so in a controlled setting and you're not doing it every day. That's the other issue. If you're wasting a lot of money on drugs, that's an issue. That's a bad issue. You could be using money towards saving or side hustles or whatever. So that's an issue that it's not like I'm out promoting or glorifying this, but I do have to say if anyone ever does, this is a public service announcement. I have two strong rules. One, don't use around people you don't know, and don't do so in public because maybe that doesn't apply to YouTube, but
Mhm.
no, because it could be really dangerous. I have gotten. I'll just tell you one thing. I don't care. I'll probably get this is obviously getting demonetized, but I was overseas and I did partake in a substance, and I wind up saying something in the process of that where this guy wound up through couch surfing. I was couch surfing at this guy's place, but I guess I offended his girlfriend. I didn't even realize what I had said, honestly, because we were already toasted before we got out this substance, and we were slammed already. But he wanted to kick me out of his place, so I was in a foreign town I'd never been to before, and in a I wound up in like an hour outside of the city, man, high out of my mind, and I just that was such a dangerous thing because if you're not with someone who's going to say, "Hey, we understand stuff can go wrong," and someone who has your best interest at heart. If you're just meeting someone or you're hanging out with some shady people, that could be the recipe for absolute disaster. So that's my public service announcement. That's all I got to say about that.
Mm. That's
I
good.
become upset like that, all kinds of stuff.
Hell
that?
yeah.
Definitely agree.
Yeah, some dangerous shit can go down. Yeah, and if you don't believe me, go watch Breaking Bad because some shit goes down in that show. I'll tell you that. Okay,
Hey,
so
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, please, Scott.
I was just gonna say,
Come on,
you'll see all kinds of
see
people
yet.
ODing, all over the place, man, and coming into bars. Like this bar I go to and hang out with friends, people came in and died at the bar. Like that was fucking crazy. Like the dudes just went and did some, uh, you know, crazy drugs, laced up shit, flock
Yeah,
take, and they come in there tweaking and acting crazy. And then next thing you know, them dudes are slumped over, man, and they're like laid out at the
I
bar.
experienced that.
It's crazy, man. Like,
I saw that in the bar. I had never seen someone OD in my life before, but I saw that in a bar once.
it's
But anyway, I
crazy.
do want to get onto this next question: is what do you think the government's response should be to the user and to the seller? And I'm going to take myself off screen for a second. I'll let
Okay.
Scott take this over, kind of
The
facilitate this for the
user,
next 5 or 6 minutes. All right.
okay.
There's no quick answer for that.
What should the government's
What should the
response be to the
government needs to
user
mind?
and the seller?
How
Like,
about
I
that?
don't know.
How about the government?
I don't know. It's like a
How about the
body
government?
autonomy, bodily
Scott,
autonomy,
how about the
man.
government? Scott,
Hmm.
how about the government mind its damn business? How about that?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
And how
why is
about
it?
the government don't places with drugs that destroy people like methamphetamine and crack? Like, how about the CIA and the FBI stop doing those things?
Yeah, and how about
How
all
about
the pharmaceutical drugs that are being peddled and people get addicted to and can't get off, and it's costing them their life and all that?
pain management?
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's right. They're gonna manage your ass. That's the
Like,
thing. I don't think it's their
people are
place,
using drugs,
really.
in drug use, you know?
Yeah. Just, punish people for their actions, or um, if
If they
somebody gets
commit a
drunk,
crime, yeah, if they commit a crime, then
yeah,
punish them.
yeah, but not just for smoking the weed or drinking the alcohol. We saw how prohibition worked out. It's like it doesn't work. People gonna get drunk,
It
they're gonna
doesn't.
do a lot of things, but that's just my thought.
Always, I mean, the ironic thing is that alcohol is legal and most bad things happen on alcohol. I mean, and all, just for the record, I've never done meth, okay? Because I said earlier, I've pretty much done a little bit of everything, but not meth. I don't fuck with that at all. Never will, never have. But yeah, like it's ironic because you allow alcohol and most tragedies happen with alcohol, especially on the road. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's physically addictive. That's scientifically proven. You can't even withdraw from alcohol without putting yourself in danger. If you like a real alcoholic, you have
Hmm.
to like be under medical observation or you literally die trying to get off that shit. Like alcohol is
Hmm.
no joke. And I'm like,
No, it's
you're
not.
gonna punish people for smoking and
Yeah.
you facilitate alcohol to everybody. It's crazy. It don't make no sense.
In the hood, it's like drugstore, gun store, drugstore, gun store,
Yeah.
alcohol store. It's like on every corner. It's like, what is the message? Here's where you can get your gun, and here's where you can get your bottle of your
Hey,
taste.
he's I mean Scott, he should rephrase his question and ask, what should we do to the government for facilitating those drugs? They
Right,
want to
exactly.
destroy everybody.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But we
And
all
so,
know what's going on with that.
so Scott, I do want to say something that you had mentioned earlier. I think about the Netherlands or another country about it being legal, and I think I saw this study like about Sweden, um, that was either or might have been the Netherlands, but And it was saying like it was doing the same thing as far as making certain substances legal. But the difference is between there and like Oregon, where they just this is okay, we're gonna make everything legal and total disaster. But the major difference is
Hmm.
that they had solid social services to help people who have these abuse problems, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, um, you first of all, you could tell people to do something that they know is not good to be doing. Okay, like I think a lot of users will know that this is not good for my life. You know, it's hurting me, it's hurting my body, it's hurting my family, and they might physically like understand that mentally, but they can't for whatever reason. They lack the resources or the tools or
Well,
the education.
yeah, I think we spoke about free will before. It's like, yeah, we have free will, but on the other hand, we don't have ultimate absolute free
Mhm,
will.
mhm,
Like if we take drugs and our body gets adapted into things,
mhm.
we don't have the will to actually stop that just by thinking and willing it to stop. You have to have help,
And
and
the
that's the good thing about Europe. You know.
the neurological too, it could totally rewire your brain mentally.
Hmm.
So I think that's the key thing. Like first of all, I have to say like to punish someone for having some kind of addiction like that is inhumane. Honestly, it's not the way I would expect to treat an animal.
Right.
um like if you think about if somebody came in during COVID-19, this pandemic, and people were so understanding and so compassionate, and society got rearranged around this, like literally societies got completely rearranged to deal with this one issue. And that was something that, I mean, I hate to actually talk about um addiction as a disease, because I don't think that's an exact, I think that takes away some of the human agency behind it. But it is something that's definitely, you can call it a mental disease. But um, people were understanding that if you came in and you had shortness of breath, or you couldn't, whatever was going on. I had COVID a couple times, and I had some body aches, but people understood if you had this is the treatment you needed to get, and there was no condemnation. There was no need to vilify the people who were experiencing that. And I just would love to see from someone who's seen it in my own personal life, in my families and friends who've had their lives completely ruined. Like, I would really love to see people having more of a compassionate look on people's lives.
you know, People that call
Because
alcoholism a disease,
I
people
think a
call
lot of
alcohol,
people don't,
yeah. Hmm.
the thing with compassion, like if you come in a hospital with symptoms of anything else and they know, oh, that's COVID, so they're going to help you. I think the reason that people act like that when it comes to drug addicts because they feel that, oh, you made that choice to use
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
drug, so
Hmm.
you. And I think they fail to recognize, like you said, there's mental illness going on,
Hmm.
apparently, obviously, and we don't have enough support systems for that. So I
Right.
agree,
Hmm.
and then more compassion for sure.
Right,
Right.
right.
That's why I
It's
say
like,
I don't want, hold on. Just one thing. I don't want to
mhm.
eliminate the human agency inside of that. So I don't like to say it's all you can, like, you can't hang out with someone who's an alcoholic and like you catch it from them and you go home and, oh shit, I caught alcoholism yesterday. It's a process.
Right.
Well,
There's a lot more to it.
if alcoholism is a disease, it's one of the best diseases because if you think about the upside, like what are your symptoms? If you have colon cancer or something, it's like, well, I'm bleeding out of my bowels. I've got gut wrenching, numb pain all day long. But alcoholism, what is your symptom? Oh, I like to drink a lot of booze. I like to talk to people a lot. And who
God.
knows if you meet another woman in a bar that has the same disease as
Oh
I do,
God. We're getting
we might.
demonetized.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Or
No, I know.
what about
I
me
get
just
where you're
something
going with
like
this.
into some narcissistic asshole and I beat
Yeah.
my wife and my children So there's also
Oh,
negative.
Yeah, yeah. Of
right.
course, of course.
So,
We don't like to
okay.
talk about that part.
Well, so I do want to get onto
No,
yeah,
no,
I
we
do
don't
want to
talk
get
about
onto
that part.
5 real quick because I do got to
Okay,
get out of here pretty soon. But
let's do it.
is it possible to use drugs in a safe manner or for spirituality? And I do have something to say about this, but I think I already talked about the safe thing. And also, if you're getting your drugs illegally on the streets, you want to make sure that you're dealing with an honest drug dealer, someone who's not cutting it up. Um, and they have to be FDA approved if he's a
Hmm.
street pharmacist. No,
Right.
but that's really one of the risks, right? Because what I've seen recently, like in Oregon and Seattle, Oregon and ah,
San Francisco,
no, or what's the other? Or Washington, Oregon and Washington
Washington.
is that people are cutting up the drugs with other stuff that's more potent. So that's something that it's like, how do you ever really know for sure what exactly you're getting if you're snorting it or shooting it into you? Can be quite dangerous, So, safe manner
Yeah.
or for spirituality, we can talk a little bit about that. But also, like one of the things that's interesting that they were doing in Portland was they were like passing out clean needles and everything, and making sure that people had safe spaces or whatever to use. But that just seems like it kind of like endorses it. I don't know if that's the endorses or promotes it. So
Hmm.
that's a bit of a slippery
I mean,
slope, right? So, your thoughts?
I get it. It kind of endorses it because they've been doing that in Germany forever. You can even buy like clean needles in like the little dispenser machines and stuff,
Hmm.
but at the same time, they don't have to worry about the healthcare system being overwhelmed with like
Mm.
hepatitis C and HIV and all
Hmm.
this other stuff that's
Hmm.
intravenously passed around.
Hmm.
So I mean, sometimes you have to weigh your pros and cons, and
Hmm.
even though it seems like it may facilitate an issue, it also helps like control another issue. So I think sometimes shit just isn't black and white like that. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah. Any chance you guys know who a guy by the name of Cash Jordan is online? He's a vlogger.
Mm-mm.
He makes a lot of videos exposing like the drugs. Man, and I think he was in San Francisco, and he was either San Francisco or Portland, one of those two. And he was showing like on those streets, like first of all the needles that were around, but second of all, I don't know what this drug is right now off the top of my head because it's fentanyl was mixed with something else. But people were scratching their arms basically, and they just had giant sores all over. Oh man,
Ew.
some atheists
You
say
know,
they don't believe in God
there's
or
a
heaven.
does that.
They say they don't believe in God or heaven or hell, man. But I think you could definitely experience hell on this planet, man, because
Hmm.
if you have such an addiction that has destroyed your mind to the point where you can cut and dig into your arm like that and not have the common sense or willpower to be able to stop that, man. I can't imagine, living in a worse hell on this planet than destroying your life like that and being unable to stop. But I'm sorry, Sophia, please.
No, I was saying that there's a guy in Phoenix, Arizona that follows addicts, and I think it's a really good show or whatever because it shows the real side of addiction, and it's meant to like educate and turn people away from that. So I was just thinking of that guy when you were talking about that other guy, but he followed this one guy for a while, and that person just some people you really just can't help, even if you try your hardest. I mean, and that's
Right,
also a
right.
reality. Because that guy, he tried everything he could in his power to help this guy, but he ended up passing away anyway because he just refused to go
Yeah.
to the hospital or to the doctor. Some of these people are just so far gone, but they may, they may could have been helped like 10 years ago, but
Mm.
that's also like the reality of it. You can't help everybody, you can't save everybody. You also have to want to when it comes to drugs. You do have to have some level of willpower. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's what I was saying about hell, like why I think that's a hell on earth. But there's this good movie where the guy says, I learned a long time ago that you can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. So you could want it here to high heaven for people, and if someone doesn't want to
Right,
get clean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, period. But Scott, uh,
Yeah, I was just thinking
right,
about, spirituality. Like for me, I define spirituality as like self-awareness, like a journey of your self-awareness and your life journey and, things like that, right? So I think about even sometimes it's the worst challenges that we go through in life that become the most strongest spiritual experiences we ever
mhm,
have.
mhm,
Because if you can overcome something like an addiction, you're going to come out on the other side
yeah,
stronger and you're going to learn something and you can help others too in the process. So that might be a
yes,
spiritual experience, even if it's negative. Um, it can be. But on the other flip side, there's other substances that aren't addictive, like say DMT or mushrooms, things like that, psilocybin, that do give you like a very unique self-awareness experience. Like you learn who you really are by going deep within yourself and you see, infinity, you see the light in you,
mhm,
you see what you are, that you're part of nature, that you're just an expression of the divine nature, and that can be
right.
a very strong spiritual experience to make somebody wake up or do positive things in
It
life. I
makes you
know it
very,
has for me.
yeah, it can make you very grounded, and you suddenly kind of understand why am I here? And because a
Mhm.
lot of us
Mhm.
really we're confused. We're living our life in confusion, and it gives you the clarity that you need to be grounded. And being grounded is one of the most important things, because what happens is our mind kind of like splits into all these like fractals, and your shit's all over the place. But when you
Mhm.
have like this, it's like it balances your mind and puts the pieces back together. And I'm not saying it's a miracle drug. I'm saying you can use it as a tool to assist you. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's
Being
not just an
grounded is
act.
good. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I say being grounded is good unless you're a kid. Then that sucks.
Yeah. My mom grounded me all the time for shit.
Right?
But
And
yeah, being grounded, being centered, being having an anchor in life, like some sort of knowing that you're going to be okay no matter what. That's a very strong source of power. That's like even if you come from like a strong family and you got family that has your back, that way when you go out in the world, you're not really worried about it because you got a whole team behind you that's supporting you. But what if you don't have that? Then sometimes you
right,
have to just know that you have this
you have to
other support.
have yourself.
You have
You have to
yourself.
have that in your
Yeah, and you are incorruptible. You're not something that is fly by night. You're actually eternal. You're actually part of infinity.
yeah.
You're part of the real world, which is an infinite incomprehensible mystery that you're part of and you're playing a part of it. You're conscious of it and you're playing your part in it. And so that's very grounding and it lets you know that no matter what
I
happens,
want
you're going to be okay.
about Yeah, and I want to say about Christians, not no offense against you being a Christian, but one of the things I didn't like about Christians is when you say, you have to have it in yourself or whatever, they'll say something, oh, well, you think you God, or you think you can do it on your own. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, if there is a God, right, the way that I believe you
There is.
connect to this God, you connect to him through you, like how else are you going to connect to it? You're not going to connect to it looking at a leaf or TV. That energy has to be somewhere where you can connect to it. It's within you in your soul. So if you can't find that within yourself, you're not gonna find it outside of you either. You could sit in
Hmm.
church all day, and
Amen.
Yeah,
listen to some.
that's interesting. And I will say this. Yeah, you're not going to offend me. I've been listening to atheist shit on Christianity for the last 3 years now, so I think I'm pretty like I'm immune to it, and I think, but
Right.
you know, I do want to say that I really wish more Christians would. They don't have to start a podcast, but at least interacting from different people, like you being a mystic. I mean, I've interviewed magicians, cultists, Buddhists, Hindus. I mean, I've interviewed everyone, like every spectrum here. But
That's
one, yeah, one is that it's helped me to learn different ideas. But two, it is definitely it is definitely opened my eyes to a lot of the damage that Christianity is doing to people in people's lives. So I don't think that a lot of the criticisms that I've heard from the atheists, I think a lot of them are valid, and I don't shy away from that, and I try to take them on head first. And I think this area, particularly we're talking about, um, it is one of those things because it does cause me some cognitive dissonance because I can tell you this. I'm going to tell you one experience that I had right now with marijuana. But my experience with the mushrooms, that was, first of all, those two were completely natural. Messing out with meth or heroin, that's a different realm altogether. That I don't really think that
that's
really
very
anyone
fun.
should do that. But that being said, I do know these things are natural, and I do know that what I experience, I would. What I'm going to tell you right now, this will be the last thing I want to say on this topic. But the experience that I had was so real and so vivid and made me so aware of something else that was going on inside of me. Um, but I had a trip on marijuana where I became completely 100% aware of split personalities inside of me that were at odds with each other. And I was actually like a completely impartial observer, like not even like I honestly think this that it was not just subconscious, but like in Christianity we talk about God being like a triune nature person, like the Trinity. Well, I believe the same exact thing is true, that this is the way that we're created in God's image as a Christian, because I don't think he has a physical body like we do, but we have like a three-part side to us where we have not only our physical body but our spirit and our mind. And what I experienced with this marijuana trip was that my mind and my spirit were they basically had a showdown, like essentially like a
Yeah.
fight club where these two sides competed against each other. And it wasn't even me. I wasn't even participating in it. They were completely like impartial. I was impartial to what was going on. So it
They were
made
other
me
types of,
what?
they were other or different aspects of your own mind. And
I would.
I'm looking like I'm in shock because I have to add this real quick just to add to what you're saying. A person that was like smoke weed, because I don't smoke weed, they had a similar experience. They had multiple personality disorder, or it's called DID now, right? And
Hmm.
his like personality, the person that he really was, became like catatonic, not in the driver's seat anymore. And
Yeah,
then he developed this personality that was Nicky, and he turned trans and all of that. But whenever he smoked weed, he'd have like a blackout experience, and then Ricardo, which was the guy that was catatonic, that was really him, who kind of like left the building and was just watching everything happen, would write. And then when he, when the weed wore off, he didn't remember that he wrote that, but it was from Ricardo, which was himself,
interesting.
obviously. It helped him like try to unify all these aspects of himself by being able to tap into Ricardo, but only when he smoked weed. So that's
Mm.
crazy. Like that's to what you're saying,
Yeah,
how you were able to uproot that.
I I can tell you this. I know someone would listen to this and they say that just sounds completely nuts. I'm telling you, I would bet the life of me and my entire family that like what I experienced was just simply you could not describe it, chalk it up to either a bad trip or just purely physiological reactions. It was something so
Right.
much more spiritual and out there that like if I tried my best right now, I would maybe be able to explain 1 or 2% of it. Put it like that. It was just so far out there, so far.
I believe it because other people have had different experiences, and I'm like, y'all can't all be crazy, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know. So that being said, Breaking Bad is real. People like that, people do experience some really bad stuff. So be careful. I do want to give this guy a shout out right here. His name is Cass Jones, but you can see all the different stuff that he goes.
Mm,
He looks into all kinds of different stuff, but yeah, Cass Jones.
Jordan.
Oh, sorry, Cass Jordan. My bad. So there's a lot of different stuff that he shows. But he does a lot about drugs too. So anyway, any last thoughts before we get out of here? Because I do got to get going.
I know I'm about to go get me some weed right now. Y'all got me all cravey and no, I'm just kidding.
Well,
No, I'm
it was
good.
nice meeting you. To you again, Scott. And yeah, I mean, if somebody's gonna do drugs or whatever, like do your research. You know, try not to just jump into it and just listen to people. Do your own research. You know, because it can
Hmm.
be risky, like we said.
Yeah,
Yep, Scott,
definitely.
last
That
thoughts.
was the why.
Yeah, I would just say, drugs are can be abused, so always have self-control. Just use it for a purpose and an intention. Put your intention behind it and don't do things just because, peer pressure or you have a need. Investigate that, try to solve that problem. It's a red flag. So that would be my advice, is just be conscientious of everything you do.
Scott, the
Yeah.
technical word is the devil's lettuce. I've
That's
learned
right.
that from an atheist on here. It's called the devil's lettuce.
Devil cigarette.
The devil's
The marijuana cigarettes.
With
He was a
devils.
habitual smoker of marijuana cigarettes.
You know what they call
Uh,
alcohol down here is the devil's pee.
oh God.
oh,
No, but just real quick, Sophia, I really, really want to thank you for your feedback today. I actually wish it wasn't. You can actually hear the stuff going on here. We're going to get started right now, so I do have to go like right now.
Okay.
But I have to talk to you again because this was a fascinating, fascinating. Maybe I will have to do a round
Hmm.
two on this topic, or maybe experiencing a little bit more about mysticism, because
Hmm.
I definitely think that there's. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on this topic because I think I've been very honest about RHE, about how little I actually know. Like, and I'm definitely not an expert on any topic, but I know that I know one at best. I know 1% of what is out there to know in the universe. So in that other 99%, I know there could be stuff that would just blow my mind, shatter it into pieces. Especially talk about history and
yeah.
the universe and just everything. So I think when we have a little bit of humility in exploring some of these topics, it opens the door to learn and to explore. And that being said, just take care of yourselves. Really, if you have a family member, man, I just say this, man. I looking back now because I saw my mom going through this younger. I was really, really judgmental towards her, man. Like had
Mm.
no way of even processing what she was going on mentally or physically, had no idea what kind of pain she was in her mind or in her spirit. And I can say that sometimes you learn some stuff in your life and then you look back
Yeah, it's a touchy subject. I
like,
know it's,
man, I
it's
wish
hard
I
one
would have
for you.
known. I wish I would have known some of the stuff I know now
You know what?
20 years ago. And so that's just the one advice I want to say that like if you do well, one, if you are personally struggling with something, to have compassion on yourself, be understanding of you didn't choose. I don't want to get into the argument. You didn't choose to be in this situation. Lots of other stuff have happened in your life. Some physiological you have no control over. So one, you didn't choose. Yes, get better. Yes, get help, but it's not entirely your fault. And second of all, if you're dealing with a loved one, one, just be compassionate. Try to be patient. And the reality is, this is a hard one to deal with. Is that just accept that not everyone is going to get better.
Yeah.
People lost their lives in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody recovered from that. So that being said, if you have a time with your family, just try to tell them you love them and give them a kiss today. And this addiction may take their lives, but you don't know how much time you have with them. So just try to cherish the last few times. And I'm sorry, I got really, I didn't just talk about, I didn't realize I was going to get so, sorry. That being said, I do want to thank you for your time. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for the topic, man. It was a great topic.
Thank you. And I'm going to leave this outro. So, yeah. Thank you. Subscribe, all that good stuff. All that stuff that you're supposed to say. And so got to focus. Okay, I found it.